Death Battle, like many things, has storyboards, and these storyboards are often subject to change when converted into the finished product. So I thought it'd be interesting to look at what scenes were cut or altered from the storyboards to the finished products of Death Battle Season 8. But wait, Nemesis, how do you have the storyboards? Did you steal them from Rooster Teeth headquarters with your amazing ninja abilities? Well, 1, I'm glad you think I'm good enough to do that, and 2, no you fucking moron, I'm not a ninja, I'm Australian. Now, the storyboards have all been publicly released on DeviantArt by... I have no idea how to pronounce this. But this guy is a storyboard artist for Death Battle and even a viewer of this channel for some reason. So, hi! And you guys should definitely go check him out if you have time. I'll link them in the description, unless I forgot. Please tell me if I did, I feel so stupid, but I will put them there. I'm going to go through all episodes, point out noteworthy differences, and just things I like more or less depending on the changes. Not all episodes have had their storyboards released, namely Macho Man vs Kool-Aid Man for hopefully obvious reasons, and Saitama vs Popeye, which I think you need to pay to see them or something, and... nope. Yoda vs King Mickey. For the most part, this episode is basically the exact same. The only real difference is that Yoda only hits King Mickey once with the stick, massive animation W with the rapid hits. However, the storyboard also takes a big L in that King Mickey has a far more aggressive expression the whole time, which while making some shots less funny, also takes away from the spirit of the fight. It doesn't really have the fun, jovial nature that I love about the episode itself, and the only time I prefer the expression in the storyboard is when Mickey looks more genuinely sad about Yoda's death, making Yoda's remark about not needing to worry make a bit more sense if Mickey's actually sad. Shadow vs Ryuuko. I have nothing to lead into this. Instead of swinging her arms up twice when anticipating Shadow, she only does it once in the storyboard, which flows a bit better. One thing I greatly prefer in the storyboard is Ryuuko's smile when she tells Senketsu to have a little faith. Obviously in the animation she looks a lot more pissed because Jenny Yokobori's delivery is very aggressive. But, honestly, just ask for another line read that sounds more jovial. You can give it a bit of a tone more befitting the character. One of the most noteworthy sequences is the Kisaragi transformation, and according to the storyboarder themselves, this was meant to be hand-drawn by him. But they just didn't have the time to do it and had to settle on using sprites. A shame, but what can you do? The final change that I'm not so sure on is Senketsu at the end. What I think this is meant to be is standard Kamui Senketsu, like after a normal Life 5 synchronization. And why I think that is because this frame is very clearly base Senketsu, and you can tell that the identically drawn one in the episode is actually base Senketsu, but it's colored like Kisaragi. Like, for some reason, that's just base Senketsu, but colored like Kisaragi, and you can tell that because Kisaragi's shoulder pads are not only bigger but also more rounded, and she has a little shape covering the middle of her chest, which is missing here. Give me the impression that this was meant to have been Senketsu burnt out of Kisaragi, but somewhere down the line animators either didn't care or more likely just didn't really notice the little issue they had there, and accidentally did all the rigging for the wrong sprite. Also, Senketsu is obviously in pain and meant to be dying here in the storyboard, while in the episode his expression is hard to tell, but primarily blank, and he's not screaming at all. But yeah, this episode didn't change much. Most of the episode's story is just that 2 parts of it were meant to be hand-drawn, those being the aforementioned Kisaragi transformation and the scene of Kisaragi Ryuuko dodging the Chaos Spears weren't hand-drawn. Lex Luthor vs Dr. Doom. This episode does have a few changes, but it's not that much. The start of the storyboard shows the Everyman project at top, which is foreshadowing for later, which is missing in the actual episode. In the episode, Dr. Doom gets off a foot dive combo, but in the storyboard, Lex grabs him and slams him around, which, if you had asked me when the episode came out, I would have said it's funnier in the episode, but the community pulled a time high and has made this foot dive thing no longer funny to me. Honestly, I find it much funnier in the storyboard. And fun fact, my own parody of this episode, before I even saw the storyboard, skipped straight to Dr. Doom whiffing and getting punished for it. The utter failure of Doom here is a lot funnier to me than, hey, that's a Marvel vs. Capcom reference. The episode also adds in some takes imitating Doom's lines from Marvel vs. Capcom, which are not in the storyboard, making me think these are things Stephen Kelly said to get into character that they decided to throw in either for fun or because they like them. In the storyboard, we get a heads-up display saying Doom is initiating the Cosmic Power Siphon, which is not actually in the fight. One thing I really wish they kept though is that Lex's mind returns to his body in this shot, which is not in the episode, and it's a little immersion breaking for me as I just think, wait, why is that the only time we didn't see a mind go back to its body? This is an episode with not much changes. Geese vs Heihachi. This episode has very few changes. When Geese smashes Heihachi into the rock in the storyboard, it's a lot more clear that the rock is damaged, but also in the episode he's smashing Heihachi's back into it, while in the storyboard he's smashing his face into it. And when Geese finishes his raging storm, the camera bots are visible in the storyboard, but not the episode. And also at the end when Heihachi is falling, he looks slightly more bothered by the electricity in the storyboards than in the episode. Blake vs Mikasa. This is actually interesting because one thing they decided not to change was the frame rate from the storyboard. That was fun. The first change is definitely a plus for the storyboard. In the storyboards, Blake looks more upset with Mikasa destroying her book, while in the episode she looks more shocked, which is just weird. And overall, Blake's expressions are clearer in the storyboards, which is not really a fair comparison overall because it's hand-drawn, and the same goes for Mikasa too, even though she is moderately expressive in the episode. Another change I'm mixed on is that the camera angles for the shots leading up to the infamous 2 sets of ears line are different. In the storyboard, it's a flat shot from the side that leads into a cool Mikasa swinging moment, while in the episode itself is this much cooler shot focusing on Blake recovering with Mikasa's gear firing from closer to the camera past Blake. It's a plus for the episode. However, in the episode, we then get a shot of Blake on the right of the screen that immediately breaks the 180 rule without any camera rotation by jump cutting to Blake on the left. While on the storyboard, there's no cut at all and Blake remains on the right the whole time. A big plus for the storyboard is when Mikasa gets frozen, instead of hitting the ground and that breaking the ice, she fucking alpha womans her way out of it by backflipping in mid-air off the ice, detaching her swords, and then zips away mid-fall, which importantly keeps the pacing up but also robs us of this hilarious fucking running scene. In this scene, Blake is meant to kick Mikasa to the left, but instead kicks her to the right. Probably the most interesting change in my eyes is that there seems to be a sequence of the fight that is completely different to what happens in the storyboard. In the fight, we get what's arguably the best segment of the battle, with Mikasa swinging towards Blake and fighting her upside down, before giving us a very out-of-place spinning time moment, leading into this honestly really cool tracking shot of the two zipping across the city and fighting before she fires off her blades. In the storyboard though, we get one clash of Mikasa and Blake's swords, leading to Mikasa blocking 2 of Blake's shots and ejecting her swords as he does so, and then a simple clash. Back to the animation, Mikasa sort of just throws her blades out with Blake blocking one of them, but the other boomeranging around and hitting Blake in the back of the head, which is not something I have ever seen in Attack on Titan. I do not think that can happen, which leads to Blake being punched upwards into the sky by Mikasa before dropping an exploding clone and leaving. In the storyboard, however, Mikasa fires one blade first, which Blake dodges, but then fires the second one at where Blake now is before Blake can react to dodge that one too. She then catches Blake mid-swing away and punches her into the ground as they fall, leading to the boom. It's kind of hard to decide which of these instances I prefer. The animation as the 100% necessary shot of them zipping beside each other and fighting with a tracking shot, so I'd probably choose the animation, but I think combining the two would be better. For instance, keep the start with the upside down fight and spinning time, then use the storyboard's idea of Mikasa blocking gunfire while ejecting her sword instead of just doing it for no reason. You know, give her an actual visible reason to see her ejecting her sword instead of just doing it. Then give us the badass tracking shot. Then instead of this bullshit that is not how the weapons work, have Mikasa use her brain to fire one and then fire the other to where she thinks Blake will go, catching Blake off guard in the way that shows Mikasa's intelligence instead of luck. Then go to punching downwards because that just makes a lot more sense and looks less stupid than punching upwards. In the episode, Mikasa just stands still and just happens to guess Blake will attack him from behind to throw a thunder spear. However, in the storyboards, we actually see the results of Mikasa's earlier line. Earlier, Mikasa says that Blake likes popping clones and attacking from behind. In the storyboard, Blake actually does this. She pops the clone and attacks from behind, and we get this badass shot of Mikasa turning around as the Blake clone hits her and vanishes into nothing. In the fight itself, the line is not actually followed up on. Blake does not pop a clone, she goes straight to attacking from behind. So the timing for Mikasa's story is not as believable, as she has a frame of reference in the storyboard, but not in the episode. Storyboard also does not have a random frame of Blake and Mikasa are absent. There's also blood when Mikasa gets stabbed with a spear, which, looks a lot better than just Poe vs Iron Fist. Something to be expected. One of the biggest changes in this episode is that for the most part the storyboards are more clear, with the fat wobbling when Poe gets punched to make it look like he's a bit more cushioned. But it's a bit more understandable that would be more clear in a storyboard than in sprite, so it's okay. Another almost inevitable alteration is that the jovial feeling of the fight is a lot better conveyed in the storyboard, as Iron Fist is smiling a lot of the time during it, which in the episode proper would require editing the face sprite basically every single frame, which probably wasn't worth their time. This is most notable to me when he agrees to spar with Poe and when he gets the bamboo stick. For specific changes, Poe doesn't say Dragon Strike when he claps Iron Fist near the start of the fight. When Poe swings back on the bamboo stilts, he's visibly still holding onto them in the storyboards, which actually changes what's happening between the versions. In the storyboard, he's swinging forward, then back around and hitting the floor on the other end, letting go of the bamboo when he actually lands. In the episode, he's thrown directly vertically up into the air with no forward momentum and falls directly down to the ground. It makes a lot more sense on the storyboard. Very inconsequential one, but when Poe is eating the bamboo to get closer to Iron Fist, he knees Poe in the episode but backhands him in the storyboard. The knee is definitely a bit better, it feels more like a stronger hit when your opponent is uniquely vulnerable to it. In the storyboard, when Iron Fist sneezes, it's very clear that he sneezes once, charges to attack, then sneezes again mid-strike and gets caught with the hold. In the animation, however, it looks more like he's sneezing so hard he throws himself forward and then sneezes again. Both works, but I do like the storyboard more, as it looks like Iron Fist went into strike but did not expect another sneeze, and his more traditional fighting style got outdone by the unpredictability of Poe's. The storyboard just had the two dragons headbutt and fly upwards, while the animation has this unreasonably badass moment where Iron Fist Dragon bites down on the side of Poe's, which is awesome looking, and also means Iron Fist Dragon actually gets to do something as opposed to just getting bored with no effort. Steven Universe vs Star Butterfly. This episode has actually got a decent amount of changing, which I didn't expect. Star has this "oh lighten up" line, which I have no opinion on. In the storyboard, Steven falls on a second sandcastle instead of a sand sculpture for Tomato, but in the episode they actually drew Red Runner on the first sandcastle. Don't know about the Tomato though. The fist fight on the bridge is extended in the storyboard and also not shit. Interestingly, something they didn't change was this frame of the storyboard. That's actually still in the episode. How fun. When Star powers up, a lot of animals sort of explode and go flying out, and we get a really nice scene of the storyboard of Steven using bubbles to catch them and set them down safely, which I think conveys his character very well. Would have been nice to see in the episode, but I guess there wasn't enough time. Steven actually catches the horn of this Warnicorn instead of just this. Instead of Steven jumping up to attack Star, then her awkwardly appearing behind him immediately, there was actually a bit where Steven fires some hexagons at her, Star tries to slap it away with her hand, which just fails, and she gets a line before getting smashed into the floor. It definitely helps the fight flow better instead of Star supposedly going from directly in front of Steven to below and then behind him, without Steven even noticing despite staring straight at her. Right before the end, there was meant to be a final line for the spider with a top hat where it would scream "why" when Star eradicates everyone while flying towards the screen. In general, this scene looks more like it's meant to have a shot of the lasers carving things up inside the cage from an outside view, which I'm not sure if this was needed, but it would have been funny. Link vs Cloud. This episode had very few changes between storyboard and animation, though some interesting ones that do give me something to talk about. For one thing, this episode was going to have an establishing shot showing Cloud entering the tunnel he's in during the start of the fight, as well as showing a road closed sign at the end. This actually helps the issue I have with the setup, where it's confusing as to why Cloud would drive into a tunnel that suddenly ends for no reason, as here it's clear that he just did not know it was because it was seemingly a recent development due to this sign, which is more believable seeing as his fusion sword is directly below this point, so presumably he drives down here often enough. Mipha was also meant to appear above Link when Mipha's Graves was used. Additionally, it's minor, but Link's spin attack in the episode was originally meant to be his forward smash. I like the change a lot more because the spin attack is more iconic to Link across the franchise overall and just looks a lot cooler. A very minor change is that the storyboard actually says Omni/Slash version 6, while in the episode it's Omni/Slash version 5, which is not too weird, but it has got an interesting story behind it. You see, in the original version of the Advent Children film, the Sephiroth Omni/Slash scene was the 5th version of the Omni/Slash designed for the movie, hitting Sephiroth 6 times. However, in the complete edition, Cloud hit Sephiroth 13 times, and so it was officially called Omni/Slash version 6. The Omni/Slash version 6 hits 13 times, and the Omni/Slash version 5 hits 6 times. Interestingly, the 13 hit one is used in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but they've misnamed it Omni/Slash version 5 instead of version 6. In Death Battle, Cloud hits Link 11 times, meaning that technically this is neither Omni/Slash version 5 or version 6. So that's a funny little story, and if you're wondering, Cloud hits Link 9 times in the storyboard, which is still not the same number of either Advent Children Omni/Slash. The only other moderately interesting change here is that in the storyboard, the Ancient Arrow doesn't actually destroy the Fenrir, it breaks straight through it and Cloud blocks the attack with his Buster Sword, which actually causes the Buster Sword to shatter and explode instead of just fly off to the side. I like that more, but that's also not how Ancient Arrows work, so Oh, also, Purple Link as a fairy has a face, that means this Link is now categorically my spirit animal. Well, my second one, because my first one is obviously James Pokemon. Batman vs Iron Man. This episode has a single really big change, but there are a few small things to talk about first. Batman's smile before Tony gets blown up by his Batarang place at the start is a lot more obvious. In the actual episode it's harder to notice the pixels on his mouth move as they're such a similar colour to the rest of his face, and I think having it be more up close would have made it a bit more clearer to people who are confused by what this at the start was, because I did see a few people who are a bit confused. The scene where Batman zips away is slightly different, likely to accommodate for Tony's line. In the storyboard, Tony busts through the wall midway through Batman's zipline and slams into the right of the screen. However, in the episode, Batman stops for a moment and gets slammed to the left, which I'm certain is because they needed more time for Iron Man's line to play, and having Bat ziplining the entire time would be silly. When the Godbuster attacks the Hellbat in the storyboards, it's more obviously affecting the Hellbat, though that might just be me, and I like it more. When the hammer fires in the storyboards, it takes out a big chunk of the moon, which makes for a really cool shot, but sadly was not in the episode itself. And finally, before the big one, there's some dramatic camera work during the fight between Batman and Iron Man at the very end when they're out of the suits. Honestly, I prefer the way it's done in the actual episode. It feels a lot more personal when it's a single camera angle. The big change though is that the Hellbat and modular armor actually have a proper fight in the Watchtower in the storyboards. It's fucking cool. Tony gets a line telling Friday to power up his suit to everything, overclocking the repulsors as Bruce just walks through it with barely any issue, tosses Tony around, and including a cool moment where he bounces Tony off the roof and punches him. Tony gets some hits that do nothing and fires a bunch of missiles that do nothing. Tony also tries to attack Bruce in the dark, which actually shows us some of Batman's intelligence as he taunts Tony for even trying that, and effortlessly finds him and throws him out. It's such a cool scene, it's a shame it wasn't the final product, but yeah, that'll happen sometimes. Goku Black vs Reverse Flash. This episode doesn't have too many changes, but it does start with one that fixes a minor issue I have with the actual episode. Instead of Goku Black appearing through the green tornado, the episode has him make a portal after the tornado's done come out of that, which is not how it's meant to look. The storyboard has it the right way. As for the other changes, the guy who explodes next to Earbud is meant to be left in slow motion mid-exploding as Earbud runs to hit Zamasu, which is a lot cooler. The yikes from Earbud and his incoming genius line do not feature in the storyboard, and the Earth seems to have taken more visible damage from Earbud's run around it with Black than in the actual episode, and looks like he might have actually run away from the supernova. Hard to tell. Dio vs Alucard. Alucard is meant to shoot with his right arm, and also Dio is meant to be in a limousine. I imagine for Alucard's sake this was changed to just reuse the DBX shot for ease of use. An entire sequence with Baskerville was also cut. In this sequence, Dio would throw the remains of his limo, but Al would face through it. He'd do the thing where he sticks his hand and gun out Baskerville's mouth, shooting the fuck out of Dio, and Dio would use the world to destroy Baskerville before he uses the Roadroller. Speaking of which, after it explodes, the line we heard from Taka in the teaser for this half of the season was meant to play, but it was cut out likely for time. Also, the two sentences in this sequence and the storyboard don't really mesh together. When Dio goes for the Stinger Eyes, we were not only meant to see the familiars more clearly in the blood, but it was also meant to split the Elizabeth Tower in half, which would lead to Alucard's Bird of Hermes shot being framed by the moon instead of the clock tower, and for it to be seen in the background after Dio lands on a building instead of the street. Probably would have been cooler. I'm okay either way though. Akuma vs Shao Kahn. This is one of the ones that doesn't have too many changes. Shao Kahn was meant to use his green powers to barge Akuma at the end of his opening combo, but doesn't in the episode. From what I can tell, there's maybe more of an arena sort of feel to this location, which is best shown in how the episode's big Go Hadouken explosion is just a purple green screen over sand, while on the storyboard it's this far more impressive shot of it exploding in an arena that gives more perspective for size. Additionally, the whole issue I have with the hammer coming in from the wrong direction in the wrong position and the wrong trajectory for where it ends up in the episode does not apply to the storyboard, because it actually very clearly shows the hammer on its way straight down to where it's gonna land. Korra vs Storm. As you might expect, I am not in the fucking storyboard for Korra vs Storm. As you might not expect, the only other real difference here is that in the storyboard, when Korra breaks out of the ice ball with Avatar State Level 2 or whatever, she's carrying all 4 elements behind her at once, while in the episode she's only firebending. It's also a really dynamic camera tracking shot, which is not how it came out in the episode. That's about it, yeah. Madara vs Aizen. This actually has quite a few changes. Aizen says as you wish in response to Madara's I can see everything line in the storyboard, as well as being at a wide shot, but it's something of a non sequitur in context, so I'm okay with that being cut. Probably an explanation as to why Madara's mouth doesn't move as he shouts drown in despair is that it's not in the storyboard, so I assume it was a later addition. Aizen also says more when he first Kyokusui gets his Madara in the storyboard. Instead of just I'd expect nothing more from a human, he actually leads into that with is that all the fight you have in you? A great bit with third form Aizen was cut from the final animation. Well okay, before that, Aizen doesn't say don't get so full of yourself in the storyboard. But also, after Aizen's initial slash in the wide shot, the storyboard has Madara run in and go for a partially formed Susanoo punch again, only for Aizen's passive Soul Crush to destroy it and part of Madara's own arm. Then watching the storyboard, I learned that we lose our chance at hearing the full Hado 90 chant. Additionally, Madara doesn't just jump up and use fire in the storyboard immediately. Actually, there's a whole sequence of primarily a wide shot showing nothing but the scale of destruction as Aizen is swinging his sword and destroying the environment leading up to Madara's fireball. What personally saddens me as well is that we lost the what will you do with the rest of them line from Madara as he launches the rest of the meteors. I fucking wish I had that in the episode. As well, the following weapon clash that happens later goes on for quite a bit longer in the storyboard, and instead of Madara punting Aizen and Aizen just now happening to be inside or behind a giant rock for no reason, we actually see Madara launch him into the distance and force the meteor chunks to collapse around him. There's also a Sand Skeleton and a cool interaction between Madara and Aizen after Aizen goes final form that we missed. And that's it, those were the changes between storyboards and episodes for Season 8. That was a fun video, right? I hope so. Once again, you can check them out for yourself in the description, and I hope you all have a good one.